in this sport, only in this game will you see a quarterback that comes from Division II go up against the belly of the beast that is quite literally the tyrant of all terror in college football with a backup coach who people do not believe in, and they find a way to win. They're a game away from going to the national championship. Only in the world of college football. Final score 39-34. Your Sugar Bowl champions and Trinidad Chambliss delivering the game of all games. Let's break it all down. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered Post-Game Show. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because the SEC has one representative moving on to the semifinals, and it is all hotty-toddy on this channel moving forward. Make sure that you download the podcast version of the show, wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, link in the description, and check out all of our great work found at SECunfiltered.com. And as always, we are proudly fueled by our friends over at Underdog. Go visit Underdog. Use the download of the app. Promo code SECU. Get started with $75 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Underdog app at underdog.com/SEC. Good. Got that out of the way. New sponsor. We got to go ahead and get that done. Okay. So let's just start off with the narrative. Shame on me. Shame on me. Now, I will say I thought this was going to be a good game. I thought that Ole Miss was going to keep this thing close. I was not somebody that was going out here and saying, oh, I can't wait to watch them just get their asses kicked. I never believed that was going to happen because when you have a quarterback and the momentum of what Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacey were able to produce, then by all means, that is where you say you're going to keep this thing a game. But I did pick Georgia to win. So I can't take all the credit, and I'm not going to. I picked Georgia to win this football game, and shame on me looking at where I should have continued to roll. Because of the thing is, narratives are meant to be broken. And a narrative was broken tonight by watching as Ole Miss with a coach that nobody was given a shot to. Who, by the way, I might just throw this out there. He's 2-0 since getting promoted, and he is 2 wins away from being a national champion, which, again, you can go ahead and say Lane Kiffin was the guy that brought all the players there. But that is not a Lane Kiffin-led team. That, my friends, is a Pete Golding-led team, and you saw the difference tonight with several of the decision-makings. Let's just start off with the winners and work our way over to Georgia. This is an SEC channel, so we're talking about both teams. For Ole Miss, they came out swinging early, and they made sure that they were at least going to go set the tempo. A couple of big-time runs by Kewan Lacey, few passes downfield from Trinidad Chambliss to kind of go ahead and make sure that everybody knew we were delivering this type of punch. And then Lucas Carnero. I mean, we got to talk more about what he was able to accomplish. First kick, 56 yards. He had not made one past 55. That thing could have gone out from 62. The second kick, it's a yard back, 57 yards. Okay, well, that one could have been hit from 70 yards. That's how accurate he was. Defensively, Ole Miss came and delivered. They laid down the hammer. They forced a lot of incompletions and kind of threw Gunnar Stockton off of his rhythm early. And then came the moment where you watch this Gunnar Stockton's leading a drive and they score, but it was never a panic situation. You know, there's teams out there that when they have to go finally face toe-to-toe against a team like Georgia, they'll maybe kind of find a way to crap the bed a little bit. That wasn't Ole Miss. 9 plays, 3 minutes off the clock. They find their way into the end zone. Luke Haas touchdown, who, by the way, the kid is still a kid. But, dude, you may want to go look into some road game. I'm just saying so myself, and I think that most people would agree with me on that one. Or, you know, go with the ball look. It's not that bad. You respond. Georgia responds. Then Georgia takes a fumble by Kewan Lacey to the house. Dalen Everett make the play of the day, and it feels like that this is where Georgia starts to take control. And then came arguably the biggest blunder of everything that could have gone wrong for Ole Miss. In a really bad quarter by Daquan Wright, who has had a phenomenal year this season. Because, like, remember, Daquan Wright's actually been a really good tight end in the public eye. Drops a pass on 3rd down. Then on the ensuing drive, with less than 20 seconds left. Oh, and on top of that, no timeouts. Nearing out of bounds, decides to cut back in, and the clock keeps running. They don't get any points. And that is where it felt like that blunder is the coaching difference between having Lane Kiffin on the field and then having a Pete Golding call in a second game against Kirby Smart of all people, a guy that he knows pretty well. And then came the second half. And what was so interesting is that I'm not sure many of you saw, but Lane Kiffin, right around, I think it was the start of 3rd quarter, he had a little fun on Twitter. Decided to go ahead and tweet out, It's just different around here. Talking about LSU. Ole Miss proceeds to go on a 21-3 run with 3 impressive touchdown grabs, including one big run by Kewan Lacey to finally go and take the lead, put themselves ahead now by 10. And then Georgia responds. And then, unfortunately, we see the same thing that we saw the last time in the fourth quarter this game happened. One team punted. And then Georgia responds again, and they get a field goal. And ultimately, you're building up this moment. And for starters, I tweeted out that it's better than the sequel. Like that this game was as good as the sequel, if not better than the sequel. So there have been movies before in the past where you remind yourself, it's just like a shot for shot remake, and you kind of really don't enjoy it. I think everybody was enthralled with the sequel. And it's set up for the climax moment of the hero that everybody loves and that everybody is rooting for. Even if you're not a fan of Ole Miss, or even if you hate every team in the SEC, the Trinidad Chambliss story has been pretty special this year for what he has accomplished and how much he has meant to a program that many people thought Austin Simmons was going to be running the show. And he marches downfield, gets the pass off to Caden Lee. Beautiful hit by Zachariah Brance's brother. I'm blanking on not Zion Bridge. Next play, gotta have moment. Dejon Striblin, 40 yards down the sideline. And then you go ahead and set up a Lucas Carnero field goal. And just for good measure, you get a safety at the back of it. And then, of course, we have 20 minutes. Go ahead and kind of end what's going to be the last second of the game. But still, it's a performance to remember. It is. And Ole Miss is now going to the college football playoff semifinal in a year that nobody had any expectations for Ole Miss. Nobody. Not me. Most of the national public. And I'll be completely real. Nobody had many expectations, I think, for Ole Miss going into this game. Hey, you have a head coach. Your team is dealing with a bunch of rumors about players going into the transfer portal because it opens up quite literally 18 minutes ago. And now you got to wonder, what are we going to do if things go south? Like, you had a good run, but that's it. Just a good run, call it a day. The interesting part was it didn't matter because now they are going to the portal. They're going to the semifinals, which means Kewan Lacey potentially coming back next year, almost a guarantee. Trinidad Chambliss, if he gets the eligibility waiver. I don't think he was going to leave Ole Miss, but certainly I don't think he can leave now. And a team now has momentum going up against a Miami roster, just like we all predicted that those would be the two we would be seeing in the next stage and not what we consider to be the national championship before the national championship. The main reason why this game was over is for two players, Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss. If you want to go any further, we can, but that was the reason that Ole Miss won the football game. Two guys. They were the best two players on the field. They just were. Trinidad Chambliss finished with over 360 yards of offense. He had 3 total touchdowns. Kewan Lacey led all players in rushing with 99 yards. He averaged 4 yards of play. Found his way into the end zone. Ole Miss averaged 4.5 yards of play on the ground. 2 touchdowns for Kewan Lacey. My apologies. And they just made it look easy. There was a moment midway through the third quarter where we're watching basically Trinidad go full surgeon mode. Like, he is in his zone. 13 straight completions. And he had 2 of the biggest plays where it just quite literally was the magic of Trinidad Chambliss. And I heard somebody else talk about this, so I'll agree with what he said. The most dangerous player on the football field who changes the narrative of a game is Trinidad Chambliss. And he's been that way all year. When you need a big-time play, what he was able to accomplish in games against quality teams, whether it be LSU or whether it be in the Georgia game the first time around, or when it came down to the wire against Florida in the second half and you were trailing, the man stepped on up. He made every single play just look easy. And when it wasn't easy, he lied and basically created some backyard BS to make sure that things would still go his way. And ultimately, that was why Georgia had a hard time bringing him down. Once again, Georgia's pass rush was there. It didn't close. They finished the night with 3 tackles for losses. They didn't get a single sack on him, and that was because of the mobility of what he was able to play with. That, my friends, is ultimately what makes him such a unique player, and more specifically, such a dude that you can always say, if we got him on the field, we got a shot. And then how about the physicality of Kewan Lacey playing with a bum shoulder? Yeah, he had the fumble. The fumble was bad. Fumble was really, really bad, but it was on the bad shoulder. He made up for it with 2 exceptional plays on catches. One on second down when Trinidad Chambliss is getting chased behind the line of scrimmage and he's nearing his end zone. And then the next one on third down where he gets the line and he lowers his body one more time and says, you know what, dude, if this is my last game in the Ole Miss Rebels uniform, I'm going to make it count. Keeping the drive alive, keep momentum on their side. That, my friends, was a perfect performance. And then on the flip side, the second that you came out at halftime, you watched this Ole Miss's defense started to play with a little bit more tempo. Pete Golding made necessary adjustments on how to attack the interior, how to put pressure on Gunnar Stockton, how to win at the line of scrimmage, bat down some balls, and force some punts. Because of that really gave time for Trinidad and the offense to be able to start brewing up some ideas behind closed doors and get back momentum on their sideline. It was a great game plan. A couple of tries in the fourth quarter that definitely you want it back. Really, really, really bad pass interference call. One of which probably should have counted, one of which that shouldn't. And we'll get into officiating in a minute. But still, the defense played up to par. William Eccles had himself a day, a fourth down strip sack by Sertane Perkins, Sertane Perkins, who's going to be back next season. Centarian Perkins, my bad. He's going to be back next season, already locked on him for another year. Not a fan of Lane Kiffin, apparently. Dude set up another scoring drive, this time to Harrison Wallace, and what a performance. Also, give credit to the two wide receivers, Stribling and Wallace. These were two transfer portal names who, once again, what Lane's able to find when it comes to transfer portal prospects. Harrison Wallace was a dude that nobody believed in at Penn State, and Jajon Stribling was just another wide receiver at Oklahoma State. They both went for over $110. They both found their way to make some of the highlight plays of the night. One guy found his way into the end zone. The other one averaged 17.2 yards a catch. I mean, like everything that you want to see was on display from those two. And then you saw a couple of other really big time plays from Caden Lee, from Luke Haas. You can also throw in Daquan Wright, even though he had a bad drop at one point. Just things that were necessary to be able to get this thing going. Now, on to Georgia. Georgia had a good game plan. Like, if you walk away and say, well, Georgia really was like an inferior team. No, they weren't. They just came up short in a couple of plays. First thing was, I didn't like some of the play calls made on first down by Mike Bobo. I felt like that he was going for the jugular when simply a little paper cut would have done. And that puts you in second and long, which means at that point, you got to kind of switch up the play calling. I thought that, once again, you talk about great quarterback play. There were some misses at times, but overall, Gunnar Stockton played a clean game. Gunnar Stockton played a really cohesive game. When he needed to make the big-time throw, he found his targets downfield. And Zachariah Brand still is going to be one of the hardest dudes to tackle in the open field. 8 catches, 67 yards, 2 big plays of over 18 yards downfield, 8.4 yards a catch. The dude was able to deliver time after time after time. So I think that when you look at him, you know, you can go ahead and say the stat line says not really that great. This 18 of 31, ran in for 20 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Still, regardless of how you phrase it, in my opinion, he was the reason why, much like Trinidad Chambliss was able to keep Ole Miss in the game, they were able to keep Georgia in the game. What this really came down to was about 4 plays. Oh, and also the cojones. I mean, quite literally, the sheer gall and maturity and stones of Kirby Smart to fake punt it and then abuse Ole Miss on that play. I mean, this is what the SEC is all about. This is what it's all supposed to be. And that's why you trust a dude like him to be able to make the shots. You knew that he was going to have something rolled up his sleeve, especially like he did in the Texas game where they score the touchdown and then gets the onside kick. You knew something was coming. He had it brewed on up. Guess what? It kept drive alive. It kept momentum on Georgia's side. That allowed them to be able to start making some big time plays downfield. The 4 big things that really hurt them in this game was they went for it on fourth down inside of Ole Miss's territory, which I thought was really, really stupid. Your defense had been playing well up to that point. It was starting to gauge back a little bit of a steam. So why are you giving Ole Miss a short field position rather than forcing Trinidad to go ahead and run it 75 yards down the field? Really interesting call on that one. The second one was the injury to Nate Frazier. Now, I think that Chauncey Bowens and Josh McCray are 2 physical backs that add incredible value to what is a good complement to Frazier. But this was Frazier's game. You watch him go down, and he's visibly, you can see on the play that he was not going to be either 100% or 0%. I mean, he was even going to be playing if they win that game to take on Miami. It was going to be bad in that matchup. So you knew that was going to be that was going to be one that really hurt them. It took away the rushing momentum. You had a couple of runs from Bowens. You had 1 big run from McCray, but outside of that, it had to go down to the arm at Gunnar Stockton. I thought there was a really, really, really bad play design on defense. They sent, I think, 4, if I'm not mistaken. And you watch as Harrison Wallace just breaks across the middle of the field. And lo and behold, look at the play that he makes. It's like for a gain of 32. That set up another touchdown drive when it was like 3rd and 13. And then the final one was the Dejon Stribling play. I mean, you were playing sound defense all night. And for the most part, the refs, well, very, very, very poor in a lot of ways. They were letting people play through contact. The big 40-yard gain to set up a Lucas Carnero field goal was ultimately what did you in. But you weren't penalized that often. And when you were, it was very much called upon. You actually got a couple penalties to benefit you. You got one call that did not benefit you whatsoever. You had a good rushing attack. You actually outgained Ole Miss 124 to 111. You finished with the same amount of first downs. You both were about the same on third down efficiency, 343 yards. There's really not much to complain about. What it is just simply Ole Miss had momentum. They capitalized with some explosive plays. And ultimately, the quarterback that probably deserved to have a little bit more Heisman recognition and maybe would have won the whole damn award if he would have started week 1, had a better day. And it wasn't by much, but he still had a better day. And that's why momentum is such a big time deal. It's so interesting to see how different it looked for Ole Miss offensively in this game and how differently defensively Ole Miss was able to kind of put Georgia in its place, at least on the opening drive. Because if you go back and remember that first game, Georgia, they didn't punt at all. And the first punt didn't happen until the 4th quarter. And ultimately, back-to-back punts and back-to-back scoring drives from Georgia was the reason Georgia won the game. That was it. It was back and forth. You're trading blows, body shot after body shot. It was like a 12-round boxing match. And unfortunately, right as soon as you get to the beginning of the 12th round, the uppercut just does you in and you drop down and you ain't getting back up at that point. And they kind of call a fight. Like that was it with the first punt. So it was interesting on that standpoint. But the other thing was you watched this Ole Miss was trailing. And you watched this momentum start to go really lean right at the peak to where Georgia felt like if they get this stop, they're going to run away with it. And the magic of a quarterback that learned from the errors of his ways in the first game were on display. And ultimately, now Ole Miss is going to the college football playoff semifinals. They're 4 quarters away from playing in a national championship. And as everybody predicted, you're at the start of the season, your 4 teams that will be coasting their way to play in South Beach one time to claim victory and a national title were all Nick Saban assistants at Indiana, Ole Miss, Miami. Oh, and don't you dare forget about Dan Lanning at Oregon. Oh, and on top of that, one of those assistants wasn't Lane Kiffin because he left for a job that was going down to LSU. Now, as for officiating in this game, there has been bad calls at times. Brother, there were some flat-out dumbass tomfoolery BS mistakes, and there needs to be some things that were looked at. For starters, the targeting call against Georgia, I get it. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I would not have called the play. Why are you taking away one of the better defensive backs because of he leaned with his shoulder? Why? Why are we getting that? Because of, unfortunately, he just made a clean hit. It was a little bit too hard, but it was a clean hit. You want to call, you want to call hitting a defensive receiver, that's one thing. But to penalize him automatically hurt the secondary, and then you had to turn to Zion Branch to kind of step up in his place. The face mask call. That play right there, if for some reason Ole Miss does not win, they could go back and actually blame that play because it should have been for a gain of 10. It should have been for a fresh set of downs. It should have been able to put you at midfield, and maybe Ole Miss scores at that point. And we don't even get to the level of where we are when it comes to now here comes Georgia and they tie it on up. Now here comes Lucas Carnero to have to make a game-winning field goal. That was terrible. I thought multiple pass interference calls were missed, and one pass interference call that was called shouldn't have been. It was blatantly obvious. Missed some holding calls, missed a couple of quick false starts. I mean, like there were some things that the officiating does, but you can't blame the zebras. You simply can't. You just got to look at the dudes that are on the field and say, what can I do to go ahead and get behind it? When you see how bad officiating is in the first half, you shouldn't be sitting and waiting around in the second half and going, oh, well, now they're going to give me the call. No, you got to play through it. That's just it. And so right now, there are things to where it's going to have to change because if it doesn't, we're going to have to start displaying flag football. Because if it just feels like there are so many things that you can look at on just minute little details that go such a big way into affecting the game. And it affected Georgia. It did. Their secondary started taking a massive hit. You don't throw for 360 because of against a Georgia secondary if they ain't missing some help. You simply don't do it. I don't care who the hell you are. And you also, on the same token, don't miss a face mask call that blatantly obvious when you're right in front of the freaking dude. When you're right there. Because the line judge was right there. He could see Keywan's Lacey neck basically turning into what is it? The Shining, not the Shining. What am I trying to say? The Conjuring chick. Like you could see it spinning around. Like it looks like an owl going crazy. Like that's what we got in this game. So officiating was bad, but ultimately that was not going to decide it. Ole Miss is going on to the college football playoff semifinals. Georgia's going home. Georgia doesn't have to change up much. I will say Georgia is probably going to be losing its mind on a big time play on the Keywan Lacey run because there was, in my opinion, a hold. But they don't really change up much going into the offseason. There are just things that they're going to have to work on a little bit better, get better a little bit when it comes to winning in the pass rush. That was just it. Before we get to the comment section, I want to make this clear. Everyone doubted Ole Miss. Every single person. And I know you'll say, well, no. There's some people, no. They doubt Ole Miss. Fans at Ole Miss did not doubt Ole Miss. They were the only ones who believed in this game. I dare you to find me one prediction. Somebody who comes from the public eye. Pate, Bakel, Crane, myself, anybody who said that this game was going to end up with an Ole Miss victory. No one did. And I think that that's why narratives have got to be broken. You have to prove it. But once you do, it's time to start giving credit where credit's due. Nobody believed that Ole Miss's defense could go toe-to-toe with the offensive line that had been improved by Georgia. They answered that question. Nobody thought that the Ole Miss could be able to win in the passing game and throw for 360 yards. Well, they did that. Nobody thought that Keywan Lacey was going to be the star player that really set the tone on the ground when you have Nate Frazier on the other side. They did that. Nobody thought at times that you were going to watch a masterclass from Pete Golding, another Alabama disciple of Nick Saban, working the guy that he eventually replaced out in Tuscaloosa. They did that. This is a team that was told at one point from the public eye, not me, but others around, their chances of going to the college football playoffs should be slim because their coach left them. Do you understand how stupid that is? Especially looking at how they've played now in back-to-back games and how they've responded to all of the outside noise and answering all the questions of negativity and how they haven't allowed it to affect them, losing their coach and what were rumors of the portal that were going on. They were the only ones who believed that they could win this game. And because of that, they won the game. And I would love nothing more than to see Ole Miss win it all. And I know that will ruffle some people when it comes to, well, Lane Kiffin's going to get some, he'll get his millions of dollars and potentially he'll even get a ring. Dude, so be it. Ole Miss is having fun. Ole Miss is a fun team. It's a great story. And better yet, it's being led by a bunch of people who have just been doubted throughout their careers. That's what Ole Miss is, guys. When you really break it on down and you look back at the history of what it was, it's always been a bunch of ragtag guys who were afterthoughts at different schools coming down to Oxford to hopefully keep their careers going a little bit longer. That's the story of Ole Miss. And that's been the story of Ole Miss for years. And in a season where nobody gave them a shot, because they blew it last season with great defensive plays and great wide receivers and a first-round quarterback, you expect the unexpected. I said at the start of the year, it would be the most Lane Kiffin thing of all Lane Kiffin things to not have a great overall identity going into the season and yet somehow rattle off 10 plus wins, go to the college football playoff and win the whole damn thing. It was always Ole Miss, not Lane Kiffin. It was always Ole Miss. And now they're playing with fire. All right, let's get to your comments before we get on out of here. By the way, if you haven't already, like the video, hit the ring notification, and make sure that you hit subscribe because we're talking college football all the time. Don't doubt us that that's on y'all. I told y'all. You did. Chris is on a roll with his predictions. Listen, I said Alabama was going to beat Indiana 24-21, and that is ugly, and I'm still getting comments for that. Love when you pick against us. You're right. It's very fair. Cam Coleman to OU, baby. Let's go. If that becomes official, which, by the way, I don't know if it is or isn't, that's going to be really interesting. I think he goes to Texas, personally. GA will be too much for Ole Miss. Yep. Refs, trash. Yes, they were, Sam, man. Welcome to the party. It's hard to be a team twice, except if you're Texas. Kind of true. Trinidad Chambliss. It's also hard for OU to beat Texas. That's fair. Hotty toddy, where am I? Where's all that shit talking for UGA fans at? That's crazy. And SEC is trash. No, it's just now getting down to the level of what the Big Ten is at this point. That's kind of more so it. Trinidad Chambliss is a gun. Is a gun. Wished he was a Buckeye. I bet you do right now. Honestly, Julian Saint's fine quarterback, and you got great weapons down there, and you'll be fine next season. SEC looking bad. Facts except Ole Miss. Oh, you got to start working on it. Okay, you guys just talking. The CFP exposes who you are further you get. The offense looks good with the defense. Ole Miss was the better team on all levels. Ole Miss was the more consistent team on all levels, and that allowed them to be the better team on all levels. Yes, I will agree with that. Chambliss is special. Yeah, he is. Trinidad Magic is where we are. I bet your breeded buddy is butthurt over this one. I have no idea what breaded buddy means. If Lane Kiffin had one extra playoff win, Pete Golding would double his playoff. Pete Golding's one extra playoff win. Instant classic props to Ole Miss. Kiffin on the couch calling plays. Nope, that's Charlie Wise, guys. And I will tell you this. If you are an LSU fan and you're watching that game, the thing that you can be excited about is that dude is leaving. Like John David Baker from ECU is coming on in next season to run the show with Pete Golding. That's who's going to be calling the plays next year. And it's a good offense, but still, it's not Charlie Weiss Jr. But you're watching as that offense just hung 37 points on Georgia. Kirby Smart's Georgia. And let me add this in. You're talking about a guy who has put up over 870 yards of offense and over 75 points in 2 games against Kirby Smart. That's coming down to Baton Rouge. You build him a good staff. You make sure that you get some good transportal pieces in. Guess what's going to happen? That's going to be LSU in a few years because that was the play calling that you saw. Ole Miss versus Indiana would be wild. It'd be awesome, in my opinion. Does Chambliss go with Lane or stay in Oxford? He's staying in Oxford. Number one, let's start with this. The portal's open right now, and he ain't leaving. He's got a playoff game to prepare for. And if he continues to do what he's doing at this point, we're going to see him go into the next round and play for a national championship. And if you're playing for a national championship at the University of Mississippi, you're not leaving the University of Mississippi. You can lose that game by 60. It doesn't matter. You are going to be at Ole Miss next season. And honestly, I also think that Lane Kiffin's going to go after a different quarterback. Sorsby's been rumored to be a guy. Levitt's been rumored to be a guy. One of those two, I believe, is going to be strapping up Baton Rouge next year. And then maybe you'll throw in like an Austin Simmons later. Ole Miss, Texas, Oklahoma. He doesn't get his waiver, more than likely. Well, he may not, and here's the other thing, guys. And Cowboys fans bring this up. Chambliss probably going to go pro. If I'm Trinidad Chambliss and I'm with a national championship, I'm going pro. Like, that's not even up for debate. Do you guys remember a few years ago when Cardell Jones won the national championship for in 2014 for Ohio State? And everyone said, if he goes pro right now, he may end up being a first-round pick. Yeah, he might. But he went back, and then he became a fourth-round pick, and now he's out of the NFL. There's not a number 2-3 quarterback in this draft. There's not even, in my opinion, right now, a number 2. There's QB1, and that's Fernando Mendoza, and then there's a bunch of guys below him. I would say, quite literally, it's very easy to look at Trinidad Chambliss and go, that dude, that's QB2. That's top 15 pick. That's somebody who I think should end up being a part of my franchise moving forward. And there are teams out there that will convince themselves that's what we need to go after. Like I said yesterday, I don't think he was ever going to leave because I just don't see the vision for it. But Arch Manning, after the way he played yesterday, if he went pro, some team would talk themselves into taking him top 10. They would. Some team will talk themselves into taking Trinidad Chambliss in the first round. You own that Bama over Indiana Bowl. Yeah, I already did. I do that all the time. But now you got Ole Miss over Georgia, Ohio State last night. Hopefully you don't gamble. It's part of the job, dude. I mean, I don't take selfie pics in the mirror. Like, so, at least I'm doing that thing right. But, we each do our own thing. It's fine. It's hard to be a team twice in one season, especially with that's close to a win. That's fair. Indiana, Miami, probably for the Natty. I don't know. If this is what we saw for Trinidad Chambliss tonight, it's going to be really, really hard, I think, for Miami to slow them down. But they do have arguably the best player on the planet, and that's Ruben Bain. And then if you have Ruben Bain, that might kind of veto things out. I'm not sure yet. Ole Miss, he's a dude. Reminds me of Russell Wilson. I actually think he's a little bit more of like Russ and Kyler, like kind of mix that two together. Bama is an absolute insanity. Bama is Bama's in a weird spot. Because Bama right now, they're not bad. They had a bad day. I will say that firsthand. They sucked today. Everything was bad. Quarterback play was bad. Offensive line play was bad. Defense was missing plays left and right. It was bad. What Bama is now is they're no longer Nick Saban-led Bama. And that means that they are mortal. They're not untouchable. They're not able to puff out their chests and go ahead and declare that they run college football. And that when they lose games, they only lose to premier teams, or they lose because they shot themselves in the foot. No, they lost today because they were the worst team. They lost today because they were not the better team on the field. They lost today because they were soft. Alabama did that. And by the way, I'm allowed to say that I'm an Alabama grad. I actually give a shit more than most people about Alabama than I kind of leave on to. They played soft as crap. And that's where you are now susceptible to losing games. And in a 9-game conference schedule, that's an 8-4 team most years. 8-4 gets you fired in Alabama. Like, Kalen DeBoer, I think, is a damn good coach. And I'm not putting all the blame on him. I think it was a solid season overall. But Kalen DeBoer is going to be facing a lot of heat to deliver. Because when you sign up to become the head coach in Tuscaloosa, it doesn't matter if you're replacing Nick Saban. It doesn't matter if you're trying to change Saban's ways. And there are things that Saban did that were very much out of date, which is why Alabama didn't win a national title, hasn't won a national title in 5 years. And they did win a national title during its last 3 years. Like, that's just a fact. You may be wanting to change Saban's ways, but you're not changing what the standard is. And the standard is you should be playing for a national title year in and year out. You should be winning the SEC championship, and you should be playing inside of wherever that game is. And if you don't do that, it's failure in the eyes of the people. You should get one mulligan, and you should win out. So 11-1 should be at least the bare minimum that you do. And he hasn't done that. And that's pissed off a lot of people. And now that Alabama is very mortal, and they're right alongside teams like LSU and Texas and Tennessee and Ole Miss and Texas A&M, they're prone to getting their asses kicked if they play the way that they did today in conference every single time they take the field. It does not matter who is the opponent. Where in years past, they could have had an average to below average day, and they still would have won by 20 points. Tough night last night. Mendoza looks like he's a young Tom Brady. He even talks like him. I'm already telling you guys this right now. Fernando Mendoza may or may not end up being a great NFL quarterback. He is going to be one hell of a congressman. One hell of a senator. And if you do not think for 1 second that this dude is made for politics, listen to the way he talks, listen to his demeanor, look at the guy. That is straight up future senator of Florida, Fernando Mendoza. Like 100%. And I'm not a politics guy, but we can go say that. They said we couldn't do it. Lane said that we couldn't do it, and said LSU and said we couldn't do it. Yeah. Again, I didn't think you could do it. I'll be the first to say it. I think you could. I ain't mad, man. I knew early season Miami was the team that I was the most concerned with. That's fair. And honestly, I said that game was going to be 24-21. I did not think it was going to be 24 in favor of Miami. I did not. I thought that was going to be one of the toughest games. NIL, anyone plays players, not just the SEC. That's a big-time deal. It's going to be a big-time deal. Bama just saying as physical as other teams, more playing the playoff, can't spread that way through. Bama's also one-dimensional as an offense. And Bama's been one-dimensional as an offense since week 4. Like, they could only win by throwing it down the field. And there were times where Austin Mack looked pretty good making some passes, and then the rest of the day, they were crap. And both Ty Simpson and Austin Mack were completely under duress. They were bullied. They were straight up bullied. We came in to win and beat Georgia, and you did. No team from Oklahoma has beaten Ole Miss. I'm a bandwagon with Ole Miss Rebels for the finals. I don't really care if Oregon or Indiana is in, as long as it's not Miami. I want Miami to lose next. I think a lot of people would love to see Ole Miss in the college football playoff, just to be able to say they did it, and they did it without Lane Kiffin. Which, by the way, also, Pete Golding, talk as much shit as you want. Like, quite literally. Talk as much as you want because you've earned it after this performance. Chambliss is legit. Kirby is so stupid. He made some really dumb play calls. He also put his nuts on the table and said, you know what? Test me, guys. And it worked. So that's where it is. Georgia's fans hating on Beck, but shoot, couldn't do it. But Beck doing it better in Miami than Georgia did. Beck had a really good game last night. I'll take that. But I don't think that anybody would trade Gunnar Stockton down in Athens, GA. He's had 2 games where he's had more touchdowns than incompletions. And he had 3 touchdowns today. He had a solid day. He had a very solid day. But we can't hate on Georgia. Good teams lose. Both happen. Kirby's still a legend. I can't hate on Beck. They said we couldn't do it. Beck may end up being rules were changed, allowing for that call with targeting. Again, I get it, but that still is just bothersome to me. No one can give us a chance to respect it. If Chambliss goes pro, he'll be a Miami Dolphin, and we will draft Beck potentially. Ole Miss win the whole. Congrats, Ole Miss fans. You're absolutely correct about the story of Ole Miss. I know I am. Ole Miss has been a team underneath Lane, and really a team for the last, what are we talking about? 5 years, 6 years, that's been a castaway place. And they've always been doubted. And they've always been we're going to go ahead and do things our way. And it's going to be unorthodox. And we're going to bring in a bunch of dudes that weren't well-liked or fits for other programs. And we're going to win. And we're still going to get the doubts. Because if we don't recruit like Alabama, we don't recruit like Georgia, we don't build a program up the way Texas does. We don't have the NIL funds the way that teams like Ohio State does, or the way that Texas Tech does. But we're a damn good roster. We're a damn good program. And we believe that moving forward, we can be a team that will just trust in ourselves and we'll get the job done. And that's been their story. And it came on full display tonight where a D2 quarterback outduels a former 4-star quarterback. And he ends up taking his team to the college football playoff semifinals in a year where many of us said, you go 9-3 at Ole Miss, you can consider that a very good season, especially with how much turnover they have on the defensive side. Indiana striking player. I'm an Indiana fan, but when I lived in Michigan, I went to Ferris State quite a few times. See Trinidad Chambliss. He was a baller, and I'm not surprised Ole Miss won. Yep. There were at least 2 podcasters that predicted Ole Miss. All right, Rick, tell me who they are. Like, I would love to know who they are. Because I'm not saying that I don't believe you. I'm not. I just would like to know. Because I did not see a single person that I know pick Ole Miss. I didn't. Got the dang ball. No doubt in my mind at this point. We will win. Twas a madhouse and Nola indeed. Pete Golding is going to be a great ball coach. By the way, if you're doubting Pete Golding as a head coach at this point, that's on you and you're an idiot. I don't know what else you got to see. Like, I genuinely do not know what else you got to see. And credit to Keith Carter for trusting his gut and not naming him the interim coach. Just saying, that's our head coach. He's going to be here for recruiting. He's going to be here for signing day. He's going to be here for the start of the transfer portal. He's going to be doing all that for us. Credit where credit's due to Keith Carter to say that guy is the right guy for the job. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in a 9-game conference schedule when you have to face off against LSU next season. Who are players that you lose? Who are players that you gain in the portal? Who are names that are the foundation moving forward for the Pete Golding-led squad? But he's at least proven to me he's a coach. Damn good one. Definitely a damn good one. This game was physical, and Stockton's going to be sore tomorrow. But Stockton took some hits, bro. Stockton took some hits, and he was tough as all hell. There was one point, if you remember looking, he was bleeding off at the side of his hand, and you just started knowing that's got to be brutal. And the fact that he's still playing through that to me is where I think that we are. John David Baker's from the same tree as Kiffin. I don't think our offense will change much. It won't. There'll be a few things that you do differently, but nothing crazy. Like, there's a reason why they probably went with John David Baker, who I thought was a really, really, really smart hire. And Chambliss doesn't get his waiver. Ole Miss should pay Austin Simmons or Deuce Knight. Maybe. Definitely maybe. Chambliss might be a first rounder in this QB class. Is weak. Yeah, like I said, if you told me today he goes pro, it wouldn't shock me, especially after that game. It wouldn't. Plus, Ty Simpson and Dante Moore might come back next season. I think that we are going to see him back next season. I really do. Chambliss should have been in New York over Pavia and Saban, just Saban. Pavia, no. Saying yes, but honestly, at the same time, if I had a vote, I would have given it to Jacob Rodriguez and then trade out Chambliss. I think Gunnar Stockton deserved it too. But, yeah, I don't know. I would argue Julian saying. I would. Yeah, Bama isn't bad. They just had a couple years since they've lost Nick Saban. Rebs in the golden era for sure. You picked Georgia, LOL. I did pick Georgia for like the first time. I actually doubted Ole Miss, and look where that got me. It sucked. Ole Miss is one of the best in NIL collectives. Ole Miss and Indiana are blue bloods. Everybody watch. Georgia tried to give Georgia the game. Wanted Georgia, Miami because of Beck. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Georgia came calling on a pass on 3rd and goal, killed them, running a draw in that spot, either score, bleed down the clock, get 20 seconds tying, / passing or score. Yeah, wasn't my favorite play call, but you also didn't have Nate Frazier. And I think that really changed up the way that Bobo went about the offense. I think that really did a number on what they knew they could run in that situation and what they couldn't. And the last thing that you want to do is do what you did against Alabama back in Athens, where you think that you have the right running back out there and it's Cass Jones and it ends up being a blundering mistake and that ultimately costs you a win. So that's where I think that we were kind of at with this game. That's me personally. Nate Frazier plays in that game. I think if they do run it, I think if they say that's how we're going to go ahead and win this one behind the back 3, who again had a really damn good night. Do you think Ole Miss can beat Miami? I think Ole Miss can. Do I think Ole Miss will? I'm going to have to watch the film again. Miami did a lot of good things. And it was so funny to me that when people said Miami didn't belong in the college football playoff, I laughed. I did. Because if I understood that, they had been behind Notre Dame the entire time, but they beat Notre Dame. They handled business against almost everybody. Like for the first month of the season, they looked like the most complete team in college football. And when you have a defensive lineman like Ruben Bain, who's that freaking elite at winning one-on-ones, it's going to be really hard. Like I will tell you right now, Georgia has some dudes. Georgia has some studs. Ole Miss has not faced a player this year built like Ruben Bain. They just haven't. And so how they respond to him is going to be able to see it. But as you bring up here, Chambliss is the best quarterback Miami has seen all year. I could argue that. I could absolutely argue that. In fact, I think it would be foolish to say that there was a better quarterback than him. I don't even know where you would go with that one if I'm being completely real. Yeah, you're probably right. It probably is him. All right, we're going to end the live stream here. But before we do, let me tell you about my friends over at Underdog. Football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, more. Plus, if you get your picks right, you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. It's very simple. Just download the Underdog app, use your picks, and use promo code SECU to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5 bet. That's promo code SECU. Higher, lower wages, whatever tickles your fancy, go do it with Underdog. Make picks, win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in states where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See asset.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms_DFSS.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpdgambling.org. In New York, call the 247-HOPE line at 818-778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. ESPN wanted UGA to win, and it was laughably obvious. I don't think they wanted them to win because if you heard Sean McDonough with some of the play calls that he was making, it was abundant that he was very much pulling for Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss to pull this thing off. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that for the rating standpoint, who doesn't want to see Carson Beck go toe-to-toe against his former team? Like, who doesn't want to see that? I don't because I want to see Ole Miss, but that's it. UGA got so many cheap calls and no calls in their favor. This is the Auburn game. There were also some calls that should have been called against Ole Miss that weren't. Really bad officiating crew, guys. Really, really underwhelming officiating crew on so many different levels. All right, we're going to end the live stream here. We will be back on Sunday, usual show, breaking down the future of what is Miami versus Ole Miss. What does the transfer portal look like? A lot of names have gone in. A lot of really prominent names, and there are going to be some moves made that are going to probably shock you that is really beneficial for the futures of several programs. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss much more, but until next time, final score, Ole Miss 39, Georgia 34 in the Sugar Bowl. The Rebels are moving on, and college football's greatest story is continuing behind a Division II quarterback. I will talk to you all on Sunday. Have a good rest of your Thursday night, or I guess wherever you are Friday morning. And we'll talk to you all next time. Peace.